It's based on a well-known mimer of the Rebbe Rashab Hechaltzu from Tafresh Nun Tes. I mean, eventually it goes back to a mimer of the Rebbe, but there's a very well-known mimer of the Rebbe Rashab called Hechaltzu, and it's a lot about Ahavas Yisrael, which has to do very much with these days, as the Rebbe is going to connect it with the 3 weeks. But there's going to be a little bit like some intense Chassidus concepts, Kabbalah concepts. Just hold on to your Kabbalah sheitlach. Make sure that you don't fly away with the topics. Haltzu meitchem anashmletzav draft from amongst you, or arm from amongst you men for the army. Los is nikmas Hashem b'Midian, to place Hashem's vengeance against Midian, that Midian caused the whole plague against the Yidden at the end of Parshas Bolok, and now it came time, and then Pinchas put a stop to it, and then Midian had to be punished for that. And how was the army supposed to be formed? Elef lamata, 1,000 for every shevet, altogether 12,000 men. L'chol matas Yisrael, to all the shvatim of the Yidden, to all the tribes of the Yidden. Tishchul etzava, you should send to the army. It's known the analysis of this and examinations of this in Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe by the same mimer titled Haltzau. Ubedrush Haltzau on the well-known mimer Haltzau that I mentioned to you before, the Rebbe Rashab in the year Tafresh Nun Tes, 1899, said a mimer called Haltzau. The Gam Bedrushik Vaikush Marich and also in the Mamorim of my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. Madu Aksiv Haltzau. Why does it say Haltzau? Havale Lemeimar Haltzau. What's the difference between the two? It has to do if we're addressing the entirety of Klal Yisrael, or we're just addressing certain select few that are going to be taken from Klal Yisrael. Ki Haltzau mashma kulchem. In the Hebrew usage, in the Lashon Kodesh usage of the word Haltzau, it seems to indicate all of you. That means that the whole Klal Yisrael would be going out to the army. But it's not that way. Since it says from you, that means only from some of you, or only some of you. Therefore, according to Lashon Kodesh, they should have said Yechaltzu instead of Hechaltzu. Gam ma'u l'chol mata is also why they say to all the tribes. The mashma kol hamatis is a similar question. It seems to indicate that if all the tribes, the entire Klal Yisrael, went to war. V'havelel meimar mi kol matis. It should have instead said from all the tribes. The hainu miktsasam, because only some of them went. Only 1,000 for every shevet. That's not even close to the entire tribe. Gamau in Nikmas Havaya, but Midian also need to understand that it says to place the vengeance of Havaya, of Hashem, in Midian. Lifnei zem ksiv nekoim nikmas bnei Yisrael. Beforehand it says, take the vengeance of the Jewish people, which is, in other Amarim, he also contrasts this, that when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, he told, you should go ahead and avenge the Jewish people for what Midian did to them. And when Moshe Rabbeinu addressed the Jewish people, he said, go avenge Shem Havaya, Shem Yudke Vavke. And a lot of the Maimer is going to be speaking about how Yudke Vavke is about unity, whereas Midian is about disunity. In other words, Ahavas Yisrael versus Sinas Chinam, and also in all levels, wherever there might be divisions or disunity, Shem Havaya, Shem Yudke Vavke brings it together. So that's why Midian was the antithesis of Shem Havaya. So Shem Havaya was being fixed up in a way and used to counteract Midian. So first of all, this concept he's going to express right now, how Midian is the polar opposite of the name Yudke Vavke, and this even goes back to Yisro, he's going to say. Even Yisro that came from Midian had to counteract Midian to be able to have the revelation of Shem Havaya by Matan Torah. So he says in the second paragraph, "V'yuvim b'hagdim in klippus midyan." This will be understood by first prefacing what the idea of the klippa of midyan is all about. In the klippus midyan, hu ha'hepech mishem u'menaged l'shem havaya. The klippa of midyan is the opposite and the opponent to the name of Hashem known as Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hine midyan hu l'shayin modin u'meriva. Midyan is from the language and expression of a dispute and an argument. The klippus midyan hu inin apirid v'yischalkus. The clip of Midyan is about separation and division. Va'ad, to such a degree, the separation is so strong, va'ad l'sinas chinam, till a needless hate, or pirid alavavis, and the hearts go apart. Heipech inin hasholom va'avish b'kedusha. The opposite of peace and love that's to be found in holiness. Va'amar Rabbeinu Shmasein the Alter Rebbe said that love your fellow as yourself, as the vessel for loving Havaya your God. So we see that Havaya and disunity don't go together. When you have a case of Chas v'Sholom, lack of peace, then you cannot have a place which Shem Havaya is there. Since Klippas Midyan is about dispute and argument, it's the opponent of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's also the idea behind the great length of this final exile. There was a lot of exiles that the Jewish people went through. There was Galus Mitzrayim, there was Galus Bavel, there was even when Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael, they were under the control of the Yevonim. All different levels of Galus, and yet none came close as far as the duration and length like this final Galus. How come? The Galus Bavel, the Galus of Bavel, though there were very severe sins, that the Chazal say that Hashem would overlook even the three most severe sins that involve a capital crime. He did not forgo the putting aside Torah. But despite all those terrible sins that took place that led to the exile in Bavel, the exile only lasted 70 years. As opposed to this final Golus in the Avar, Kotzir, the harvest already passed, Kolokayitz, the summer has ended, Vadayin L'Neshana, we still weren't saved. This is based off of a pasuk in Yirmiyahu Hanavi. This Golus, Ba'mitzad Sinas Chinam, is a result of needless hate. So we see how awful and how terrible Sinas Chinam is, that needless hate causes a Golus that is of such a terrible duration, beyond and above anything close to it of any other Golus. Even when you have the most severest type of sins, like took place that led to the Golus of Bavel. So now the Rebbe is going to bring in, how can I say that this Golus, this final Golus, is a result of Sinas Chinam? The Chazal say we don't know why. The Chazal say that the early ones, meaning Golus Bavel, that it was known what they did wrong, so therefore the end of their Golus was related to them. But our Golus, where it's not revealed what we did wrong, so therefore the end of the Golus was also not told to us. So how am I saying that Rebbe says? How do I say that this final Golus is because of Sinas Chinam, needless hate? The Chazal say we don't know why. The final Golus was not revealed, the reason why. So the Rebbe is going to give a very interesting nuance to what does it mean the reason was not revealed. It doesn't mean that we don't know why, but it's a deeper concept. So he says in the middle of the second paragraph, what we just now said, that Sinas Chinam is the reason for this lengthy Golus. It does not contradict what the Razal said, the early ones, that their sin was revealed. In other words, the Torah, the Tanakh, the Navi says what they sinned. So in this Gal Kitzam, so the end of their Golus was also revealed, that they were told that after 70 years they would be returning to Eretz Yisrael. Achroinim shleinis gala avoinam, but the latter ones, in other words, the Golus after the second destruction of the second base of Mikdash, that their sin was not revealed. Loinis gala kitzam, their end was not revealed, meaning we weren't told when the Golus is over. So Mikol Mokim Ein Ze Soysel Mashin is Bar Le'el Da'arichas Gzeh HaGolus Mitzad Chasinas Chinam. This statement of the Chazal does not contradict what it says, that this lengthy Golus is a result of needless hate. How does it go together? Is it something that we do know or we don't know? So the Rebbe says needless hate means that it was not revealed. What does that mean? Ki hainu hach, because it's the identical idea. The oven zeshloin is gale hu inyan sinas chinam, because this sin that's called an unrevealed sin is needless hate. Why is needless hate called an unrevealed sin? A person will fool himself that what he has, it's not needless hate. What's the point? Needless hate. It's unjustifiable. There's no reason for me to hate that other person. That's what needless hate means. So he thinks, what? When I hate the other person, there is reason. It is justifiable. He thinks that he hates that person because he's supposed to be hated. And the person that's the hater, it's not his fault. Only the other that is being hated, it's his fault that he's being hated. It has nothing to do with me. Skip the parentheses. That's what it means, that their sins were not revealed because they think they have no sin. So their end of the Golus was not revealed. So now he explains, you remember we mentioned that this idea of Shem Havaya has to be, can only come to the fore when Midian is sublimated in some type of way. So it's not just now, by the war against Midian in our parsha, that it says, Loses Nikmas Havaya b'Midian, that we need to have the vengeance of Havaya in Midian, but this counteraction, and this like Zel Umazel, one against the other, that we have by Havaya versus Midian, was even necessary for the revelation of Yud Kevavke of Shem Havaya b'Matan Torah. So that's what he says now about Yisroi v'Zel, Masha Koydem Matan Torah Yitzarech Li'is Hachnos Klippus Midian Aydei Yisroi Koyen Midian. That's why prior to Matan Torah there had to be the subjugation and the sublimation of Klippus Midian through Yisroi, who he himself was either a priest or a chief of Midian. Sha'amar, that Yisroi proclaimed, Ate Yadaiti Gomer, now I know who is the real God. Like the Zohar says, that Matan Torah was waiting for Yisroi to proclaim that. Only when Yisroi, the priest of Midian, proclaimed that, and he had tried out every Avodah Zarah in the world, and now he admitted in Shem Havaya, that was the total counteract to the clip of Midian, that was undoing the clip of Midian, allowing for the revelation of the name of Havaya by Matan Torah. The Matan Torah Gilu Shem Havaya, because by the giving of the Torah it was a revelation of Hashem's name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Like it says, Vayer Davai al Har Sinai, that Havaya descended on Har Sinai. And it says, that I am Havaya, your God. What's it mean, I am Havaya, your God? That means to say that we're bringing down the Havaya Nasa Koichacha V'Chayesecha, that Havaya becomes your might and it becomes your vitality. That's what it means, Elokecha. Elokecha means your energy force. So Havaya is so revealed that it becomes connected with me. And by the way, this concept is going to be discussed a lot throughout the Maimer about the union of Havaya and Elokim. Not just to have the level of Elokim, which is Hashem's concealed level and has to do with the vision, but Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is unity, should reside in the disparity and cause them to be united. Therefore, to be able to have that Havaya should become Elikecha, that Havaya should become our power, our strength, total revelation of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So first there had to be the sublimation of Klipas Midian that opposes Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and that began with the chief of Midian, or the high priest of Midian, that proclaimed, now I know that Havaya is the true God. Val Derech Zeh, the Rebbe says, similarly, just like it was then by Matan Torah, so too Yuvam B'chol HaMekaymis, B'chol HaDoros, B'chol HaZmanim, so too it's understood in all the places, and all generations and in all times, the Gili Shem Havaya U'aidei Achnos Klipas Midian Davke, the revelation of the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is through subjugation of the Klippa of Midian specifically. So now he's going to start explaining how Havaya is about unity, and about Havaya brings unity into whatever it comes into play. And therefore, the sublimation of Midian, which is about disunity and disparity, will allow now for Havaya to come down. So he says in the second paragraph, the idea behind this is the Havaya Lashon Mahavim. The word, the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is related to the word bringing into being. Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Shem Havaya is responsible for bringing the world into being, nothing from nothing to something. Another thing that's understood in the meaning of the name Havaya, the Gam Lashon Hoya Hoyve V'Yeh. The name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is a combination of the three words was, is, and will be. What does that mean? In both of those explanations, we are making unity in a place of disparity. Hainum, this means the idea is that he is to be found in a place, in an existence of something that's brought into being. Now, if you say something is brought into being, there's already a disunity. There is the creator and the thing that's created. Still in all, Havaya is interacting with that and bringing it to a state of unity, like we'll soon explain. V'gam begidrei azman, also in the category, in the paradigm of time, hoya hoy v'yeh, was, is, and will be. So Havaya comes down into place and into time, and coming down into place and into time, it influences and affects both in place and in time the idea of unity. That it was, is, and will be as one. Until the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Hashem's name of unity and his special name and the name of his essence. So despite him dealing with a seemingly disparate parts, he makes it one. Even in this world, concerning this world, it says that in the beginning Elikim created, but the name Elikim, by having the Yud and Mem at the end, that's plural. Where do we see that Shem Elikim is plural? K'mashakasav Elikim Kedoshim. It doesn't say Elikim Kadosh, which would mean the Elikim is holy in the singular, but Elikim Kedoshim, it's holy in the plural, because the name Elikim is plural, indicating the multiplicity, the plurality that's to be found in the existence of the world. That's why it says Bereshis Bara Elikim. Yet, despite the fact that the world is a place of plurality and disparity, in the day that Havaya and Elikim made the earth and heaven, because in truth, what is responsible for creation, bringing the world into being? That's Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Like we said before, that Havaya is from the word Mahava, Ma'iliyosh. Yes, he brings into being from nothing to something. So why does it say B'yom Asois Havaya Elikim? And why does it say Bereshis Bara Elikim, the name Elikim, the whole time? Elashim Mislabish B'Shem Elikim, but the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the name Havaya, is enclosed in the name Elikim. Shuhu Amogin V'Nartik L'Shem Havaya. It is the shield and the sheath, the case for Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. But the very power that brings the world into being is from the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. To such a degree, Ad Shegadol Havaya Mikol Elikim. It's the name Havaya is so greater than all Elikim, beyond any level of disparity. Meaning, we have the unity brought down into the disparity, into the plurality. V'hainu the Gambo Elim Kvisha Nivrai De Elikim Lashon Rabbi. That even in the world of waves created through Elikim, which Elikim indicates plurality, Poel B'Shem Havaya. So the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei influences and effects in this world that came about from plurality. It should be the Tmur instead of being multiplicity and separation and dispute and hatred until unnecessary hate. Harehu Poil, the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, interacting with Shem Elokim, influences and affects Shetia Achdus v'Shalom v'Ava. There should be oneness and peace and love ad lavas chinam, until needless love to counteract the needless hate. Derech Agav, the Rebbe says a similar concept about this type of taking the plurality and dealing with the plurality and causing it to be in a state of unity. The Rebbe says on U.S. coinage, on the currency, on the bills, it says e pluribus unum, which in Latin means from many. Pluribus is from the word plural. Unum is from the word uno, one in Latin, all the Latin languages and so on. Meaning from many one. I mean, they were talking about from the 13 colonies, they made one country. But the point is that Rebbe said that even in the U.S. currency, we have this brought to the fore about how despite there is disparity, there is the unity of Shem Havaya bringing it together. So now he's going to explain, where do we see that Shem Havaya is about unity? And therefore, because Shem Havaya is unity, so when it comes into contact with plurality, it's going to make even the plurality become joined together. It says in the last paragraph on the page, to be able to explain the unity of the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, this will be understood according to what the Chazal said, that the purpose of the Torah was to make peace in the world. Right? Same idea. The idea of taking, where does peace apply? When there's disparity, when there's different parts, and now comes the Torah and joins them together. Ad she'amru, to such a degree, it's not just that the Torah will make peace in the plurality of the world, but even in the most highest spiritual realms, where there's room for division and separation, Torah causes unity. That Chazal said, whoever is involved and engaged in Torah for its sake, for the sake of Torah, he makes peace in the heavenly court, in the royal court above, God's retinue above, and the lower court, the lower royal court, and the lower retinue down here below. And the Rebbe will explain what this Pamayah Shamayel, Pamayah Shamata is. The idea behind this is in Pamayah Shamayel, the heavenly retinue, or the higher level of the royal court of Hashem. Those are the first two letters of Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the letters of Yud-Kei. The Oisius Elohim Shem B'fnei Atzmai. We know that the letters Yud-Kei are its own divine name. Yud-Kei itself is one of the names of Hashem. So that already shows on a certain distinct level that is separate from the whole entire name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Here, the Rebbe is going to bring a proof that Yud-Kei is its own separate name. Like it says, Ki Yod al Keis Yud-Kei, that Hashem swore by placing his hand on the throne of Yud-Kei. So we see Yud-Kei is Hashem's name. V'alei and Nemar, concerning the letters Yud-Kei, it says, Hanistoros lahavaya lekeinu. Those that are concealed are to Havaya, our God, meaning Yud-Kei, as he's going to explain later, is a concealed level of godliness. It has to do with Chachma, Bina, that's above and beyond us. That is L'Hashem Elokeinu. And that's why it's called Pamal Yishamayla. It's called the upper royal court. It's above us. It's upper. It has to do concealed for Hashem. Then there's the lower royal court of Hashem. These are the letters of Vavke, of the name Yudke Vavke. Bechinas veha niglois goimer Vavke niglois. In the pasuk that says, Hanistoris lavai lekenu, that which is concealed is for Hashem. It continues, veha niglois lanu lavanenu, and what is revealed for us and our children. But veha niglois can be divided into Vav Hey is niglois. So the Yudke is Lamaila, the upper court, the divine royal court above that's concealed from us, and our court is the Vavke that has to do with us more. According to what we said earlier, that what does it mean on Noichi Havaya Lekecha? That Havaya comes down to be your power, your vitality of every single Yid. So therefore, just like there is this in the spiritual realms, that Yudke transcends and is totally above Vavke, so it's moving, it's understood. But these two things are to be found also in the soul of a person, we have this Neger Satshuva in the recent Tanya Chitas. Yud K, Hainu B'chinas Chachmo Bina. The letters Yud K is Chachmo Bina. Yud is a point, just like Chachma is the seminal part of the idea. It's only the point of the idea, not yet divided into details. Bina is already the way you take the idea and you break it down into parts. And that is the Yud K within the person. By the way, it also says, the Rebbe says, brings down another mamorim, that we say, Chelek Havaya Amoy, that the Yidden are a part of Hashem. The Alter Rebbe also says now in the Ger Satshuva, that means we have Havaya within ourselves as well. And the Yud K that's in our soul, that's Chachma Bina, and the Vav K is, he's going to say now what it is. Va'ois is Vav K benefesh Adam, the letters of Vav K in a person's soul. Heimamidas va'amaisa, there are the person's emotional attribute, his attributes and character traits, like love of Hashem, awe of Hashem, etc., and action that follows from that. Another division, that the Vav is koil v'dibur, the Vav K is the koil v'dibur v'kiyum mitzvahs, it's voice and speech and fulfillment of mitzvahs. So those things, that is something that's revealed to us. Why is the Yudke, the Chachma Bina, even within ourselves, considered concealed and upper, and the Vavke, which is the speech and the actions, the mitzvahs, is called revealed? When it comes to the doing of the mitzvahs, etc., those are things that every Yid is equal. All Yidden are obligated in fulfillment of the mitzvahs, but not every person has the same understanding of Hashem and has the same chachma and bina and so on. So that's why the niglis is lanu l'vaneinu, like the pasuk goes on to do them, because the vav k that's revealed to us, that is something that is everybody shares in. So now we're bringing it back to what the Chazal say, that if one learns Torah, he makes peace in these, both the divine court above and the lower court. So he says in the second paragraph, that's what it means, whoever is involved in Torah study for its sake, for the sake of the mitzvah of Torah study, not for some other ulterior motive. He makes peace in the heavenly divine court, on the divine court of above. Why is there a need to make peace? So now he's going to explain the disparity and the seeming lack of unity that might be in the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, that the Torah has to come and join them together. She says that the letters Yud and Hey are two opposites in Beis Afachim. The Yud and Yonoi, Nekuda v'Tzimtzum v'Shlil Seis Pashtus. The letter Yud, the smallest of all letters, is a point that shows on constriction and the negation of any type of expansion and expansiveness. Masha Enkin Hey in Yonoi is Pashtus, as opposed to the letter Hey. It's about just the opposite. It's about expansiveness, ad l'metziv shel shetach ben gimel kavon, until it's actually an area that occupies three different lines, the top of the hay, the two sides of the hay. So therefore, they're so totally different. And because they are so totally different, one needs to make peace between them. Why they are Torah? The peace is through Torah. How does Torah cause the peace? So the Rebbe always brings this idea out, that the way how peace between two opposite levels take place is because a level that is higher than both of those levels bring them together to make peace. If you want, you can give a silly analogy. If you have two kids fighting around, comes the parent or the teacher and says, shake hands, say I'm sorry, and make peace between each other. You need to have something that's greater than the combatants to be able to cause peace between them. So Torah is even higher than this Yud and Hey of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why? Ki ha'raisa mechachmu denafkis. The Zohar says that the Torah comes out of Chachma. So Chassidus emphasizes nafkis daifkis. Specifically, it comes out of Chachma, which means that's only where it's revealed from. That's not the original source of Torah. But its source and root is beyond Chachma. It's the point of the Yud that's beyond and above the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Therefore, through Torah, through bringing down the point of the letter Yud, we make peace between the letter Yud to the letter Hey. The point on top of the Yud is explained. That is something that has to do with Keser, what's called Ratzon Elyon. That's way beyond the Yud Kei. That's where Torah comes from. That makes the joining of the two. That's the making of the peace in the heavenly court, in the court of above, in the Yud Kei. There's also the lower court that we identified with Vav Kei. They also need to be made peace, and that is done also through Torah. In a similar vein, it's in the lower court. The letter is Vav Kei, that's not Hashem's name. Because the letter Vav shows I'm drawing down from above to below, Vav. Just like what a Vav looks like. A Vav is a line going from above to below. Like it's explained in Tanya and Sharichad V'Emunah, that the form of the letters indicates on the manner how it's drawn down. What does it mean when you say drawing down? Drawing down means it's not something else that's coming down. When you say it's being drawn down, the thing itself is coming down. Similar to an expression that Chassidus a lot of times brings down. Like water, that if you put it on a slope or in a high place and you don't have anything to hold it back, it will come down from its high place to a low place. That is the level of the attributes, the emotions, the character traits. This is still considered Kaviyachal, a part of Hashem himself, a part of his spheres. That's why it's explained in Kabbalah that Zeir Ampin, which is the Midas, is like Arech Ampin, which is even higher than the spheres. It's not important to get into the technical levels. This is all the letter Vav that's still part of Hashem, his very being. As opposed to the letter Hey, the final letter Hey, not the first letter Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the last letter Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, Spheres HaMalchus. The three lines of the letters Hey indicate the three worlds that are hinted in the pasuk where it says, I have created him, I have formed him, also I have made him. So Chassidus explains af hifsik. It doesn't just say I've created him, formed him, and made him, but also af. So that word af is actually separating. What is the separation indicating spiritually? Shezeu inyan hapirud. It shows on separation because when you're dealing with the world of Asiya, that indicates a separation. So therefore, if Malchus is dealing with such a low thing, a world of separation, a world that's like disconnected, and the Vav is still the Hashem himself being Nimshach, so Vav and Hey are again two disparate things. The Mezem move on, that the letter Vav and the letter Hey are two opposites because one exemplifies Hashem's very essence himself, the way he doesn't extend outside of himself, whereas the letter Hey, which is Malchus, even interacts with things that are considered separated. Now, why they Eiska Torah, but when one is involved in Torah, Hamshach is beginning Koitzish Yud, drawing down the point that's on top of the Yud, Gam Lacher Shenafkis Mechachma. Even after it already came out of Chachma, so therefore it's already connected more with the lower levels. It's still, even the way it comes out of Chachma, it's still higher than the letters Vavke. And like we said before, to join two disparate levels, you need to have a level that's higher than it. So Torah, the way it comes out of Chachma, is still higher than the letters Vavke. So through that, one makes peace in the lower court, in the Vavke of Shem Yudke Vavke. Now going back to that, we said that in the person, there is Yudke and there is Vavke, and Torah comes and makes a unity in the person as well, just like it makes a unity in the spiritual realms of Yudke Vavke. Last paragraph on the page, the idea in the person's service to Hashem, the letters Yudke, which are the concealed levels, Moira alais bonus. That indicates on a person's meditation and contemplation on Hashem, because meditation is all inward. Emotions, that relates to things that are outward. Action, mitzvahs, that's definitely outward, engaging with the world, that's visible to the world. But thought and contemplation on Hashem, that's all concealed within the person. But still in all, in the contemplation, in the meditation, there is those that are connected with the letter Yud, and those types of contemplation and meditation that's connected with the letter Hey. So he says, Avla is bonus dois Yud, the contemplation that's connected with the letter Yud, it's concerning the nullification of everything and their lack of expansiveness. Just like the letter Yud is just a dot, a point, it's constricted, it's the opposite of expansiveness. So the same thing, the meditation that's connected with Yud is about how everything is batal and everything is Hashem and not the world and so on. As opposed to the contemplation and meditation of the letter Hey, it's the meditation and contemplation of how many are your doings, Hashem's creations, and how great, in other words, how big and how powerful are your doings. That indicates Hashem's expansive nature, not the way it's about the bittul of the world, but it's about how Hashem expands into all aspects of the creation. This brings to the ultimate expansiveness and breadth. It's again two opposites. Are we about bittul or about expansiveness? And through being involved in Torah, one makes peace between the two, that one can live in both types of worlds. It could be a bittul and appreciating the expansiveness of the world that Hashem rules over. That's the Yudke that it makes peace. Now there's the Vavke in the person's soul. Well, Derech Zobaish is Vavke Shem Nefesh Adam in a similar vein. It's the letter of Vavke that's in the person's soul. The Ois Vav Hainu Limrat Torah. The letter Vav, that is Torah study. Shinyana Ruchnius. Like we said before, it's the voice and the speech. So Torah study is a spiritual activity. You're using your mind. Like it says, behold that my words are like fire. Fire shows on something that is spiritual. It's something that is not of this physical, tangible world. But the final letter, hey, we said before, Hainu kiyuma mitzvahs, it's the fulfillment of mitzvahs. And doing mitzvahs means engaging with the physicality of this world. It's specifically through engaging and being involved in physical items and matters. So therefore, it's the total opposite of spiritual versus physical. Torah, which is spiritual, is likened to fire, and the mitzvahs, which is engaging with the physical. But how do we bring these two disparate things together? But through being involved in Torah, which is from the language meaning a lesson, a directive, and also Torah illuminates. So then meirim es kol ha'osis d'Shem Havaya. Then we're illuminating all the letters of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, v'oisim shalom, and we are making peace b'nei between all these letters of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, v'ad shekol ha'osis misachdim bisachdas gemura, until all the letters are joined in a total oneness. Ad l'shem hamyuchad, until we get to the name that is miyuchad. Miyuchad means also joined completely. Was, is, and will be as one. And now he's going to get a lot more practical. The rest of the Maimer is going to bring this down in much more practical expressions. This is also the idea that Torah study actually creates unity amongst the Yidden in the simple sense, not just in some spiritual realm. The Jewish people down here in the literal sense, that is another and simpler understanding of what does it mean. The lower heavenly court is the Jewish people down here. Where do we see that Torah creates unity? Like the Perek in Pirkei Avos, chapter 6, is also called the Perek of acquisition of Torah, because it tells us all types of things about how to acquire and hold on to the Torah. And the Torah study, one of the things that it says that how the Torah is acquired is through joining together with fellows. In other words, studying with others. It says also in the Nevuah of Bilam that the Vahev is Basufa. What does that mean? V'amar Hazal and Chazal say that even though during the time of Torah study it might seem like they are disputing, Beis Hillel says this, and Beis Shammai says this, and Rab Meir says this, and Chacham says this, they may look like they are completely separated from each other. So he says, but Chazal say, Vesvahev Basufa means Soifon, Sufa from the word Soifon, eventually at the end, Shenasim Oyavim Zelazechulu, they become friends to each other. That's Vahev from the word Oyev and Ahava. So the Torah learning does not just, it doesn't separate them, it causes them to be joined. Okay, move aleil b'shem Rabbeinu Azok, like it's brought down earlier in the name of the Alter Rebbe, Avos Hashem v'Avos Yisrael, kol echad, that the love of Hashem and the love of another Jew are together, are entirely one, and therefore through having the Hashem in His Torah, so that causes unity amongst the Yidden. So now he's going to go further in other things that we see the unity of the Yidden. Now we see this in Parshas Nitzavim. This is the second paragraph on the page. This is where it says, you are standing all together. Your heads, your tribes, from your wood choppers to your water carriers. The Chol Esra Sugim should be Yisrael. Over there, if you go through the pasuk, there's 10 different categories of Jews. From your heads and your tribes, till your water carriers. If you will spell out all the letters of the names Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Vav Daled, Hey Aleph, Vav Aleph Vav, etc., you will have altogether 10 letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So those 10 letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei correspond to the 10 different types of Yidden. But Atem Nitzav Mayim Kulchem, all these 10 different levels, disparity, diversity, are all oimdim lefnei avaya ka'achodim lachodim ke'echad. They're all standing before Yud Kei Vav Kei as completely as one. How come? Because through the oneness, through all of us being as one. We draw down the point on top of the Yud that's higher than the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, like we said before. Like it's explained at length in Tanya chapter 32 about explaining the idea of Avos Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe uses terms and examples and explanations that's understood to a simple intellect. Even the animal soul could understand it. Even a non-Jew you could explain it to. He says in the third paragraph, why is Klippas Midyan, which is needless hate, is in opposition to the name Yud Kei Vav Kei? When Chas v'Sholom, when Jews are in a state of dispute and argument, that is considered an argument with our Father in heaven. Like it's explained in the Geras HaKodesh, where it says in the Kuni Zoyar, the Shechinta ihi mara begalusa kaviyachol. The Shechina is sick in Golus. When we are in Golus, it's the Shechina sick in Golus. Why? Because illness indicates that the circulation is not working well. The whole Klal Yisrael, you're soon going to say, are like different organs of the body, and the Shechina is the heart. So if there is a disconnect between the organs, the heart doesn't flow, the blood doesn't pump, and Hashem Kaviyachol is considered sick. Because all the Neshamos of Yidden are called the limbs and organs of the Shechina, and which the Shechina is called the heart, like it says, but the rock of my heart. And now we can understand how earlier, when Hashem told the Yidden to fight against Midian, he said, take the vengeance of the Jewish people. And when Moshe Rabbeinu said, he said, take the vengeance of Havaya, because it's the same thing. The separation of the Yidden is what's the separation of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The disputes amongst Yidden is the disputes and separation, division of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. And when Yidden get together, so then that counteracts the division that could be in Shem Havaya. And what type of war do the Yidden have to fight? Through love of another Jew and oneness and unity amongst the Jews. The joining of Atzavim, Ephraim, which means on the 10 tribes, it's called by the name Ephraim. Many of the kings of the 10 tribes came from Shevet Ephraim. Leave him be. So the Chazal derive from this. When the Jewish people are united, Chibur. That's what it says, Chibur Atzavim. Though they are connected with Atzavim. Atzavim is another term for Avodah Zarah. They're doing idolatry, but they're joined. They have unity despite the fact that they're dealing with idolatry. Similar to what took place in the first base of Mikdash, that their end, when the goals would be over, was revealed. That they had fallen through in the three most severe Avedas. Still in all, you can let the Yidden be, because a Yid, even though he sinned, he's still a Yid. And Yisrael is an acronym that there's 600,000 letters for a Torah, meaning it's all united, like all the Torah letters are all united in the Torah. So, till eventually, this unity of Yidden will bring about that Yisrael is called because he was defeated gods and men, or malachim and men, and you overcame them, because no Jew will ever be pushed away entirely. And that connects also to the other questions we asked at the beginning of the Maimer. Why does it say to all the tribes if they only took 1,000 from each tribe? It should have said Mimatis Yisrael, because Ki'ilu Namar Mimatis Mashma the Koirak Bnei Yisrael Lamata V'Loi Kol Bnei Yisrael. If it would have said just from the tribes, it would first of all be indicating that we're only talking about the Eden down here, not the spiritual levels above. And also, it's not all the Eden, but that's not the point over here. That's why it says to all the tribes. We need to affect the oneness and the peace in all Yidden down here below. And also in the entire chain order of descent. That meaning in all the levels above. Over there they rose up, the Shvatim of Yudke. In other words, the Shvatim rise up higher and higher. The Gambi Yosem Lamaila, even while the Shvatim are above, even the Matos, the way they are above, Tzarich, it still has to be Lefil Behem Achdus. We have to affect in them unity, like we said before, the unity of Yudke, the unity of Vavke, Gam B'chinas Yudke, B'malish Amaila, even the highest, most level, the heavenly, divine royal court. How do we affect this? What is the war and battle that we have to fight? We have to have needless love, which is the opposite of needless hate. We said it should have said Yechaltzu, which means only some, because only 1,000 for each tribe went, and not Hechaltzu, which means all, because this avodah of Avos Yisrael is applicable to all. Ki avodah is she'echas l'chol Yisrael, because this avodah of needless love is applicable to all Yidden. Who actually brings it out? It's through the choicest of the nations. That's why it says afterwards, Elef Lamata. V'zel mashukos Elef Lamata. So the Rebbe gives an interesting touch in the word Elef. Elef is from the word the leader, not 1,000, but the leader. The quote which is Meir Chame Admona Siderenu, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, who are Ma'alef u'Malamed in Avos Yisrael. It's not just leader, but a teacher. He is called Elef, the Ma'alef, the one that teaches. Aleph is from the word ulpan, like ulpan in Eretz Yisrael, that teaches the idea of Avos Yisrael, and therefore and he gives power and encouragement in this avodah of loving another Jew. More especially in the well-known booklet and pamphlet of Echolzu, which the Rebbe gave out actually in Chav Cheshvan Tavshim Mem Ches, and that's the famous Maimar the Rebbe Rashab, and it has additions in the back of the previous Rebbe. And since the previous Rebbe is the one that teaches us Avos Yisrael, that's why he published it initially with his additions and so on. And the Rebbe concludes with a bracha by the avodah of Avos Yisrael, through this avodah of loving our fellow. That's the idea of fighting the wars of Havaya. It says by Mashiach. It says Mashiach will fight the wars of Hashem. The fighting of the war means Avos Yisrael. Avos Yisrael fights the wars of Hashem. The Kohen Nikkus Havaya Midyan through loving another Jew. It's associated and connected with the avodah of every single Yid because of the spark of Mashiach that's in every Yid. Through that will be revealed the glory of Havaya, that he will be victorious in his war. He will build the base of Mikdash in its place, and he will collect the scattered Yidden. It will be for Hashem the rain. Speedily, Mamish, Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, the coming Mashiach Tzidkenu, Yavi, Galenu, Velchen, Kamil, Slatzenu, Mehedu, Menu Mamish. He will come and he will redeem us and lead us upright to our land very quickly in our days, Mamish.